I'll be interviewing Kassy Merilatt. Kassy was raised in an LDS family, and she's here with us today to share her journey from Mormonism into a relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ of the Bible. So without further ado, let's welcome Kassy Merilatt. Welcome, Kassy, and thank you for joining us here on the Ex-Mormons to Jesus Testimony Series. Before we get started, I'd like to get your verbal permission, Kassy, to make this video available for public posting. We'll be posting it to YouTube, of course, and anywhere else that we feel it might bless somebody. Do we have your verbal permission to do that, Kassy?
Yes, you do.
All right, great, thank you.
No problem.
So Kassy, why don't you start off by sharing with us what it was like for you growing up as a Mormon?
Well, I grew up, my parents converted when I was 2, and we were all still in the temple together. When my parents split up when I was 11, my dad and mom divorced. My mom decided to stay a Mormon. My dad left the church. We then lived with my mom full-time once I turned 14, and we went to church with my mom on a consistent basis. I went more than my brother just because I stayed with my mom all the time. I didn't really go with my dad. So I was under the constant influence of it, and I really didn't understand a lot of it until I got to my high school years, where I was doing the seminary every morning, which happened from 6 to 7, and then I went to school from there. Mm-hmm. And that was where I grew mostly, I would say, understanding more about, what it was really, what the calling was for a woman, what the calling was for a man, as far as the Mormon church goes. Uh-huh. And my mom and I constantly had talks about it, but I never had any doubts. And I didn't have doubts till later on, but I ended up actually going to an LDS college down in Salt Lake City, Utah, when I graduated from high school. I went to the LDS Business College down in Salt Lake City, which is right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City. And I was under the influence with it there, had good friends that, had the same morals as me. Really kind of just stayed in that bubble until later on. So it wasn't bad. I mean, I had some rough times during my time as a Mormon. There were times where I wasn't able to take sacrament because of some things that I had done. There were times where, even if things got bad, we had the support. I also even had a mentor kind of person that was like a father figure to me, because my dad really wasn't in the picture at the time. Mm-hmm. Which was nice to have. But now when I look back on it, I don't know if it was really them wanting to be involved with me, or if it was just kind of the way they're supposed to be.
Right. So Kassy, when you were a Mormon, did you have a Mormon testimony? For the Book of Mormon and the truthfulness?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah, I did. I did, and I shared it consistently, not only with Mormon friends, but with non-Mormon friends. I was one of those Mormons that I had more non-Mormon friends than I did Mormon friends.
Uh-huh. Right.
I didn't date anybody really in the church. I always dated outside of the church. Mm-hmm. I even was dating somebody that he wanted to learn about Mormon church, because we were actually, he gave me a ring and everything, a promise ring. And so he wanted to learn about it, and I told him, I was like, okay, and he came to church with me, everything like that. So I did have a testimony of it, and I think I had a testimony of it up until I was about 20, when everything kind of went downhill for me. But it really, I don't know, I wouldn't say I got the full extent of what a lot of people that are Mormon now would be getting, mm-hmm. their teachings, but I did believe in it, yes.
Okay. Did you get the burning in the bosom when you prayed about the Book of Mormon? Did you get a manifestation, like a burning in the bosom, or did you just...
No, I don't think I necessarily ever experienced that. Mm-hmm. I would say I kind of just got a feeling of warmth and comfort when I talked about it, uh-huh. or, prayed about it. Right. But I wouldn't necessarily say a burning in the bosom.
Okay. So you said you did have bad experiences in the church?
While I was in, yes. I was 16 and I was a teenager, and did some things that the church didn't agree with. I mean, one of the things they're big on is not, having any intimacy before marriage.
Right.
That was a big thing that I broke.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up telling my mom. My mom proceeded to the fact that we had to tell my bishop, and so we did. And I ended up being to where I could not take sacrament for 6 months. I could not go to the temple for 6 months. I could not. I had to meet with him like once a month.
Mm-hmm.
So stuff like that. So I had that bad experience. And then, I mean, I had a couple other bad experiences, but they weren't as bad as that one. I mean, it wasn't. I wasn't in church attending for about a month because I was in the hospital. But other than that, that was really my only bad experience besides the fact when I was in college at LDS the LDS Business College, I ended up being talked to, and I actually got kicked out of the church, or out of the school. And a lot of people don't know that. But I did get kicked out of the school because my ex-husband and I were dating and doing some stuff we shouldn't have been doing before marriage.
Right. Okay. So is that why you left the church? Is that why you left the Mormon church? No.
No. I left the church because of I was 20 years old. I ended up getting married to somebody, and he some tragic thing happened to where I was questioning things that I had believed. Sorry. And the tragic event that took place was not something that I had expected to happen, nor should anyone go through. But I had a lot of just questions about why this would happen, why God would have it happen. I even had people telling me that I just need to stay to the teachings of the church. I'll be okay. I'll get through it. And that was just not okay with me at the time when I was going through what I was going through. Mm-hmm. So it really questioned me, and at that point, I stopped going. My mom tried to push the issue of me going. I told her I would not. I refused to go right now. I needed to kind of find myself and find out where I need to be. And I left at that point, and that was in June of 2008.
Okay.
That I left. So a little under 4 years ago.
Okay, so, well, how did you come to the Lord?
Actually through my husband John, or JR as he's known. We were dating at the time, and he knew that I was kind of struggling as far as a relationship with God because of what had happened to me in the previous months. And he had asked me to go to church with him, which is a non-denominational church up here in Vancouver. It's called City Bible, and I was like, okay, I'll go. I was like, he's like, don't feel obligated. I was like, no, I'll go. I was getting to the point where I was open to it. So I went, and it was a really different feeling going into that church, and I just kept going. And about a month later, I finally asked JR, and we had just gotten engaged at this point. I finally asked him, what do I need to do to have a relationship with him? Mm. And that was the big thing for me to take that step, just because I had just started researching some things on Mormonism, and so had he. He had also researched because my mom asked him what he had against it. And it wasn't necessarily we had anything against it, it was just some things that didn't make sense. Right. And so he invited me to church, I went, and a month later I ended up being saved. And then that October, which was a month later, I got baptized. So I took a big leap in about 2 months, but it was the best 2 months that I had realized that I hadn't had a true relationship with him until I walked through that door.
Right. Oh, that's awesome.
It really differed just because the love you get, even though like you've been through all this stuff or you've been through a tragic event, the love you get from not only the people, but because they love the Lord, you're getting it through the people.
Right.
And that's what really got me. That's what really overwhelmed me, I guess, the first couple times I went, was how much love there was in just one little place.
Mm.
And I had never gotten that much from the church.
Right. Wow. So, well, in closing, Kassy, if you could say something to your LDS family and friends, if they happen to see this interview, what would it be that you'd say to them?
I guess the number one thing, and I really haven't talked to a lot of my friends just because they won't really listen to it, but I think the number one thing is that I do not, if you have questions about my story, then ask, but I don't want to be judged when it comes to why I left. A lot of people say that the reason I left was because of my tragic event, and that's not why I left. I left because I did not feel I was getting the full story. I also left because I was not getting fulfilled in the way I should have been fulfilled, like I am now. So one thing is, one thing I would say to them is, if you have questions, ask, but don't judge about the answers that you're gonna get.
Okay. And so I guess that's about it. So good, Kassy. I just thank you so much for sharing your story with us, what the Lord's been doing in your life, and I'm sure He'll use it for somebody needs to hear exactly what you said. And I just thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.